Hey girl,
Hi.
I love your background. That's so smart.
Thank you.
You're so put together. This is on my bucket list. You're my vision board. I want you to know that.
I try. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Teamwork really does make the dream work. So I just wanted to jump on. We did attempt a LinkedIn Live, and that went just swimmingly. It turns out you still have to do preparation before you try something new.
I also failed at LinkedIn Live. So again, we're sisters in this struggle. I love it.
Sisters, I feel like we learn so much in this new era. It kind of reminds me of my first year of teaching. You just have to do the prep if it's going to go well.
And then have a plan B if it's not. And we pivoted and we're good.
Be prepared to pivot. So we are both educators first, and now we're jumping into the leadership roles of it all. And it's spring break season. I'm in the middle of spring break for Denver Public Schools, and I know it's coming up for you guys, right?
Yeah, in LA, we're about a couple weeks away from spring break.
We're so close. And I think when we're thinking of spring break and we hear these conversations in the teacher world, we need it. We're counting down the days to spring break, right?
Oh, totally. I was on with a teacher earlier and I was like, "Where's your countdown calendar?" And she literally showed it to me in her notebook. And I was happy for her. I was proud of her.
We're just counting down the days, and it's something that we're all craving. And especially now with the way that education is going in the world, and we just don't know what's going on every day. Having a plan in place for spring break is key, and just reflecting about the different ways we approach spring break is also something that's big, right?
Yeah, totally. I loved the post you put out. Are you team, what is it? Team like take it off or team work through it? And I definitely, when I started teaching, I was team work through it. But I wish I had actually had someone to encourage me to take a little bit more time off because it was definitely coming from like a stress response of wanting to work and get ahead. And I wish what I had understood then that I know now is that there's a difference between like long-term planning and short-term planning. And I think I would have been a lot better off if I had done like some of that broad, like long-term planning during spring break. So I went back to school with an idea of what I was going to do, but I wasn't like in the weeds writing lesson plans or prepping materials so that I actually had some time to decompress.
I agree. I think on my end, and I came from a different, it was a lucky perspective, but also a little bit different in that my mom was an educator, all my friends were educators, and I started teaching at the high school I graduated from. So everybody knew me and felt like they could give me advice. And at their time in their career, most of them had been teaching 15, 20, 25 years. So they were telling me, don't touch your computer, don't open your email, go and rest, which sounded great. But for my brain and my experiences, I didn't have that luxury. I needed to get stuff done. So I didn't have to take a sick day to do it because that's what I had done my first 4 years. Any sick day I took was so I can go home and get work done without kids yelling at me.
Same, totally the same. I would go to school sick and take my sick days off to plan or catch up or write IEP.
Or once I took a half day. It was, I think, the first half day I ever took off. And it was so I could do laundry. And I took all the laundry I hadn't done since probably school started. And I went to the laundromat and got it all done at once and did work on my laptop.
Yeah, the things we do, right? The things you do to try to balance it all when you're a first year teacher, which I think is why it's so important for like talks like these and communities like these. I know that we're both starting to cultivate is so that folks have a real community space that they can go to and get just that like real practical support and advice that you need on top of like all of the instructional and kind of compliance things that you need to know. Because there's just so much that we have to do as special educators, but also none of it is really going to happen if we don't take care of ourselves first. And I just wish I had had more like mentors to help me understand that piece of the job.
Yeah, exactly. I had a lot of mentors that would tell me things from their perspective of what worked for them, but I didn't feel like there was enough resources for me to figure out what worked for me within the context of my life, right? And I think I joked that the PD opportunities I had for a majority of my career as a self-contained teacher was Pinterest and Facebook groups. And the idea of a Facebook group had that community, except most of the time it was people whining or complaining. And it's so easy to get into that spiral. That wasn't what I was looking for. So if I had a community where I felt seen and heard and could kind of workshop and have those conversations with somebody else, it would have been a game changer.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for us and really happy that we're healing our past teacher traumas by setting up these communities for other folks. I think it's going to be great.
That's a great way to frame it. We are healing our inner teacher and trying to do the things that we wish we had when we were doing it, right, in the classroom.
It's like the statistics around burnout are so intense right now, and just, nationally we have a teacher shortage. So like there needs to be more attention really paid to what does it mean to make this a really sustainable and fulfilling career.
I think that those mitigation strategies need to come from actual teachers who love teaching and who love kids instead of somebody who maybe taught 1 year or never taught 1 year and are trying to come at it from their perspective because it's not going to hit us the same way. We know what we needed. We know what our teacher friends need. So having strategies from our perspective, I think is going to be key, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Real quick, you were taught in the classroom for how long?
So I started off as a middle school self-contained teacher, and I did that for 3 years. Then I was a combination middle school, high school resource specialist, and I did that for like 4 or 5 years. There was a little bit of overlap between me like slowly becoming coordinator. And then I was a sped director for the majority of my career for about 8 years.
Okay, awesome. So if you're thinking about those first couple years, when you heard spring break, what came to mind? What did that make you feel like?
Was I think I was happy to not have to make the commute. Anyone who lives anywhere near Southern California knows that just like driving to work is a beast all in and of itself. But I really just thought of it as time to catch up, like time to catch up and time to get ahead. I really did not view it as time to like rest or rejuvenate at all.
It was a different type of rest, right? You got to,
Yeah, it was like I finally had like focused attention, to actually really plan and prep materials. I kind of talking about just like our own individual brains. Like I'm definitely someone who feels safer and more focused when I have like things planned out in advance. I never was the teacher that could just like show up without a lesson plan and like make magic happen. That's just like not how my brain functions.
I am the opposite in that, well, I did a lot of catching up in the bandwidth, but I think mine was more systems based. I was always thinking about what could work better and how I could fix things so I didn't have to deal with this emergency or this fire, whatever hurdle it was consistently coming up. So I felt like I spent a lot of my spring breaks or my breaks in general resting, waking up a little bit later, but still getting things done for my future self.
Yeah.
I could go into a classroom and wing it. That was my superpower, but I didn't want to have to do that all the time
I'm
either.
not saying that I couldn't do it. I just didn't enjoy it. It
Well,
stressed me out a lot more than it needed to.
I chose sleep instead of. So, yeah, it was probably the opposite, where the thought of having to do all that planning stressed me out. So I'm like, well, I'll figure it out later and then figure out how to piecemeal it together. So when you were a director in that role, how did you view spring break?
What's funny is when I was a director, the message I always gave to the teachers was like, you need to unplug, like you need to unplug, you need to come back rested and rejuvenated. And up until the point when I had kids, I would still opt to work during spring break because there just weren't people around and I would have less distractions, but it was at such a different pace that it didn't even feel the same, because it's like you walk into a school building and kids and staff aren't there and you just put you in like a completely different headspace and was up. And it was the time when I could do a lot of that, like reflecting, envisioning, and thinking about systems. So, like the kind of things that you were able to do naturally as a teacher, like I didn't use spring break to do that until I was in more of a leadership role. But I was always very, very firm with all of my sped teachers. I'm like, you need to sleep so that you come back rested and rejuvenated so that we can deal with all the chaos of the end of the school year. And I would hold people to it. I'm like, I wouldn't send emails. If I saw them responding to emails, I would text them and be like, you need to get off your computer. Like I was very, very like mama bear about making sure that they took the time they needed.
I love that. I wish that's something that a lot of people will say. Any seasoned teacher will say, don't answer your email, take a break and really rest. But I think we probably need more of in general as educators are examples of what that looks like. Because what works for rest, one of my friends, she would fly out as soon as school got out and she would be gone the entire break and come back late the night before and then be ready to rock and roll. And that was her rest. I was kind of a combo, but for the most part, I wanted to sit and have nothing coming at me. So sit and veg out and binge watch a whole season of TV sometimes and
Yeah.
then get some work done. So being able to see what that kind of looked like in different contexts and seeing how successful different people do things would have really helped me figure out what worked best for me because it took me probably 4 years of spring breaks to figure out my vibe and my routine.
And I think what I really appreciate about being a director was also seeing how many like mixed messages leaders can give, even not really intending to, because like a lot of school leaders, I think, would still opt to work part of or all of spring break, and if you're still sending your staff emails or asking them questions, like you're really modeling for them that this isn't time that they should have to themselves. And that I felt like was something that I just wanted to be really sensitive to and to make sure that like when teachers were supposed to be off, they really needed to be off. And even if I was working, I would schedule emails to go out like the next week. I would always really, really be really diligent about not interrupting their time and even indirectly implying that like they should be working too, because I really wanted them not to.
Something that teachers do an awful job at is we really like to tell everyone how hard we're working or show, oh yeah, I worked until 11 p.m. tonight doing lesson plans. Look what I'm doing. And while it's not to show off that we're doing it, it's more of we want to find other people to kind of commiserate with. That also isn't leading by example in maybe the way that we should be. If we don't glamorize the hard work that we put into it and we really start to glamorize the ways that we're having systems in place to rest and rejuvenate and to get stuff done and to catch up, I think that's going to be really helpful to mitigate burnout in the long run.
Yeah, I think teaching naturally attracts people who tend to overfunction. And again, you just as like a supportive community and as leaders, I feel like we really need to have each other's backs a little bit more around calling that out and being like, you've got to rest
Mhm.
because you're no good to anyone if you burn out, like you just aren't.
Exactly. I think my ideal spring break, if I'm thinking about it now, is a little bit of fun, letting loose a little bit. You and I got to go to karaoke not that long ago, and that was one of the times of my life. I have not gone out and let loose like that in a long time. It was so much fun, and I don't stay out till 2 in the morning ever. I want you to know that. So
Well, you did that night.
I did that night. So if I have like one late night of karaokeing and letting loose and just feeling free and having fun, and then get that time to sleep in and get into a routine and get a little bit of work done and have a little bit of fun, finding that the good space for me, I think is going to be key. What would your ideal spring break look like?
I think what I had wished for my younger self is that I had like actually scheduled in a trip or fun. Maybe, and again, because I have kind of like a nervous personality, not the entire week, but like you can walk away from your laptop for 72 hours. Like
Hmm.
it'll be okay. Like it'll be fine. And not putting so much pressure on myself to have like I think the problem was I walked into spring break with a to-do list instead of like a have fun list. I think that's what it is. I wish I had like made a have fun list and been as focused on like doing fun things as I was on like getting work done.
Yeah, I agree. I think having the best of both worlds, I struggle with people who say you need to do all or the other, right? Going this pendulum swings, don't touch your computer. That's not possible for me. I am crazy and I have Pinterest things to do and I have planning things to do and ideas and Google Slide stuff. And I want to learn how this AI tool works. But I also need to have that fun and being able to schedule it in, I think is crucial. And before we go, because this is just a quick and dirty chat, I could talk to you forever, and I know we will soon more. Um, one thing that would be on your have fun list.
Something that would be on my have fun list. I am an old woman at heart and I love gardening. So, like going to a new city and visiting their botanical garden.
I love a botanical garden.
I've never met one I didn't like.
We have a really good one in Denver, and so maybe we'll go to that together when I steal you and bring you down here.
Yeah, there's one near Oxnard down here and it's gorge. It's just
Okay, done.
so all right, two things on our spring break list already. Look at us. We're healing.
We're ready for the next spring break, baby. Botanical garden moment.
We're healing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm glad I got to see your face.
Thanks for inviting me. See you again soon.